You want to know how broke people actually become rich. Not the version that gets sold to you, the one with the timeline that fits in a 30-second clip. The real version. The one almost nobody makes a video about, because it doesn't sell. Here it is, up front, so you know I'm not going to waste your time. Broke people become rich. Slowly, boringly. And mostly by doing a small number of unglamorous things over and over for years. That's it. That's the whole secret. And the reason you've never fully believed it is that the boring truth is competing against a much better story. So let me show you why the exciting version keeps you broke, and why the boring one is the only one that has ever actually worked. Start with why you don't believe the boring answer. Because everything you've ever been shown about getting rich is fast. The overnight success. The one trade. The business that blew up in a year. The person who figured out the secret. These stories are everywhere, not because they're common, but because they're the only ones exciting enough to spread. Nobody shares a story about a guy who invested a small amount every month for 11 years and quietly got wealthy. There's no thumbnail in that. There's no drama. So your entire picture of wealth is built from the rarest, flashiest, least repeatable examples, and then you look at your own slow, ordinary progress and conclude you must be doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. You've just been comparing your reality to a highlight reel of exceptions. The boring people, the ones who actually make up the vast majority of people who go from broke to wealthy, never made it onto your screen because there was nothing to watch. So let's talk about what those boring people actually do. And I want you to notice how unimpressive it is, because the unimpressiveness is the entire point. The first thing, they create a gap. That's it. That's the foundation of all of it. They spend less than they make on purpose, and they protect that gap like it's the most important thing they own. Because it is. Everything else in wealth is built on top of that one habit. If you earn and spend the exact same amount, it does not matter how much you make. A person earning a fortune with no gap stays broke. A person earning modestly with a protected gap slowly becomes wealthy. The gap is the whole game, and it's the least exciting sentence anyone will ever tell you. Quick thing, because the next part is where the boring truth actually starts building into something. If you're tired of get-rich-quick noise and you just want the honest version, this channel is built for exactly that. Money Lens. Hit subscribe and stay to the end. The last part is the piece that makes all of this actually stick. The second boring thing they do, they put the gap somewhere it can grow, and then they don't touch it. This is where most people expect the exciting part, the hot stock, the clever move, the secret asset. It isn't there. The boring truth is that the people who build wealth mostly put their gap into simple, unglamorous things that grow slowly on their own. And then they do the hardest thing in the entire world of money. Nothing. They leave it alone. For years, through the scary months, through the boring months, through the months where it feels like it's barely moving. Because here's what nobody wants to hear. The growth is invisible for a long, long time. For years, it looks like almost nothing is happening. The number creeps. It's underwhelming. This is exactly the point where the exciting story people quit. They don't see fireworks. So they assume it's not working, and they go chasing the fast version again, and they reset to zero. The boring people just don't quit. That's the whole difference. Not talent. Not a secret. They kept feeding the gap and leaving it alone long enough for the slow thing to become a big thing. And the slow thing only becomes a big thing near the end, which is exactly why most people never see it. Because they left before it got good. Now here's the third thing, and this is the one that separates the people who get comfortable from the people who get genuinely rich. They work on the other side of the gap too. There are only two levers. You can spend less, or you can earn more. Most people who are trying pour all their energy into the first one, cutting, trimming, budgeting, and that's fine. But it has a floor. You can only cut your expenses so far. You cannot cut your way below zero. Earning, though, has no ceiling. So the boring but rich people quietly spend years making themselves worth more, a skill that pays better, a side income, a way to sell something the market actually wants. Not overnight, not a viral launch, just steadily becoming a person who can earn more than they could last year. And every increase in earning, if the gap is protected, widens the gap, which feeds the slow-growing thing faster. That's the actual machine. A protected gap, invested and left alone, fed by an income that slowly rises. 3 boring habits, stacked, running for years. There is no fourth secret. I keep waiting to find one for you, and there isn't one. That's genuinely the whole thing. So why does almost nobody do it? If it's this simple? Because simple and easy are not the same word. And because the boring truth asks for the one thing humans are worst at, patience without visible reward. Every part of this plan is emotionally unsatisfying in the short term. Creating a gap feels like deprivation. Investing it feels pointless when the number barely moves. Building your income is slow and often invisible. There is no applause anywhere in this process. Nobody claps when you don't buy the thing. Nobody celebrates the boring index fund. Your friend chasing the fast version has way better stories than you do right up until the moment, years later, when he's back at zero and you quietly aren't. The exciting version fails almost everyone but sounds amazing the whole way down. The boring version works for almost everyone but feels like nothing is happening the whole way up. That's the trade. That's the actual choice you're making, whether you realize it or not. So here's what I actually want you to take from this. Stop looking for the version of getting rich that's exciting. It's not out there. Every hour you spend hunting for the fast secret is an hour not spent on the slow thing that actually works. The search itself is the trap. It feels like progress, and it produces nothing. The boring truth is almost insultingly simple. Make a gap. Protect it. Invest it, and leave it alone. Slowly earn more. Wait longer than feels reasonable. That's the entire path from broke to wealthy, and it has worked for ordinary people for as long as money has existed, and it will keep working long after every fast scheme you've ever seen has quietly disappeared. You don't need the secret. There was never a secret. There was just a boring set of habits that most people abandon right before they start to work, and a small number of ordinary people who didn't abandon them and got rich so slowly that nobody ever noticed it happening. Including, eventually, you, if you can make peace with the fact that the real answer was never going to be exciting. It was just going to be true. This is Money Lens. We show you what the money world doesn't say out loud.